In the days that followed, I lived in unnamed fear. I began to think about death, about unfulfilled aspirations, about things I hadn't done and would never do. I remembered I had once dreamed of participating in a race, even just for fun, like the strong women I had read about in novels. But I only dared to dream, never dared to act. If anyone ever asked me, at this age, 80 years old, my dear friend, whether I surprise myself, I would laugh out loud. For most of our lives, we think we know every corner of ourselves. But I've learned one thing: it's never too late to surprise yourself. Life in this small suburb of Massachusetts flowed quietly like a ripple-free river. I was born on this land on a cold December morning in 1945, right after World War II, and grew up with my mother's warm milk and my grandmother's fragrant apple pies. Our house had a small garden with an old wooden fence, and every morning my brother and I would race to collect eggs under the apple tree. Those memories, thinking back now, are like a worn-out old book, but each page still smells sweet, still bears the indelible marks of time. When I was 18, I met George, the husband who has walked with me for more than half a century. We married in the spring of 1965, when cherry blossoms bloomed along the Charles River. I worked as a librarian at the town library, and George was a mechanic at an auto repair shop. Life was quiet, simple, and happy. We had 2 sons, then grandchildren came along one by one, and the laughter of children always filled our home with warmth. I never thought that one day, I would become a cancer patient. But life, you know, has unexpected turns. When I discovered I had breast cancer at age 76, it was like someone had knocked me senseless. I used to think cancer only happened to someone else, a character in a newspaper story, a stranger I'd never met. But then, it came to me, like an uninvited guest you just can't chase away. I remember clearly the day the doctor broke the news. It was a gray afternoon, drizzling rain. I sat in the small office, watching the doctor frown, trying to find words to comfort me, but the word, cancer, kept echoing in my head. I went home in the rain, tears mixing with raindrops, my heart heavy as stone. In the days that followed, I lived in unnamed fear. I began to think about death, about unfulfilled aspirations, about things I hadn't done and would never do. I remembered I had once dreamed of participating in a race, even just for fun, like the strong women I had read about in novels. But I only dared to dream, never dared to act. For 2 years, I fought the disease with all my strength. The long radiation and chemotherapy treatments exhausted me. There were nights when I hurt so much I thought I couldn't get up, but then I thought of George, of my young grandchildren. They were my motivation to keep going, even if just in small steps. Kelly, my oldest granddaughter, was always by my side during those months. She always told me, "Grandma, you're my superhero. You can do anything." It's funny, when you hear someone believe in you that much, you can't bear to disappoint them. So, I started walking again, little by little. At first just around the house, then further, to the park near the library, where I had worked for over 40 years. The first few times, each step felt like dragging hundreds of stones, but I realized, as long as I could still walk, I still had hope. One March afternoon, Kelly invited me to watch a 5K race in the town center. At first I hesitated, but then I thought, why not? We sat on a long wooden bench, watching people of all ages eagerly preparing. The atmosphere was like a festival. Music, the smell of pastries from a small stall, the laughter of children, and cheers echoing down the street. I noticed an elderly woman with white hair, tall and slender, wearing a bright reddish-orange t-shirt. I didn't know how old she was, but when I saw her cross the finish line with a radiant smile, I felt my heart skip a beat. The crowd cheered loudly, everyone shouting, "You go, Grandma." I laughed with tears in my eyes. That evening, when Kelly drove me home in the fading golden twilight, I couldn't stop thinking about the images I had witnessed that afternoon, the white-haired woman crossing the finish line, the cheering crowd. It was as if an invisible cord had touched my heart, igniting sparks of hope I thought had long been dormant. Kelly sat down beside me, her eyes sparkling. "Do you want to try?" she whispered, as if afraid to break the magical moment between us. "I think you can do it. They don't care if you finish first or last. They're just happy you dared to run." Those words reminded me of when Kelly was learning to ride a bike as a child. I had told her the same thing: it doesn't matter when you cross the finish line, just don't give up. Now it was my turn to be brave for myself, and for Kelly too. All night, I tossed and turned. I recalled every stage of my life, cooking for extended family during Thanksgiving, Christmas seasons full of laughter. I had given, loved, sacrificed, but had I ever truly lived for myself? That thought kept me awake. The next morning, I decided. Even though the fear of illness still loomed like darkness ready to swallow me in moments of weakness, I knew this was the moment. No promises, no delays. I called Kelly and said, "I want to try running a 5K on my 80th birthday. But only if you run with me." Kelly screamed with joy, wrapping her arms tightly around my shoulders. "I promise, by then I won't be away at school. We'll train together, every day, starting this week." We began with morning walks around the neighborhood, when the sun wasn't fully up yet. April in Massachusetts is usually a bit chilly, with the smell of night rain lingering on the grass. I wore George's old hoodie, while Kelly wore earphones playing soft music. Each day, we went a little further, from 1 block to 2, then 3 blocks, finally circling the small park. Some days I was too tired, my steps faltering, but Kelly would gently take my hand and encourage me, "Grandma, it's okay to rest. No one is judging us, you just need to try a little more tomorrow." I could see both pride and concern in her eyes. Perhaps it wasn't just me being healed, Kelly was being healed too, as we shared each small step forward on this journey. I bought a new pair of running shoes, the first in my life. They were a light sky blue, so light it felt like I could fly. The salesperson asked if I was planning to race, and I smiled. "I'm preparing for the final adventure of my life." She patted my shoulder and said, "I believe you can do it." Strange, that feeling, having a stranger believe in you, it gave me so much courage. Our training plan wasn't anything elaborate. Some days when I felt strong, we walked briskly, jogged short distances, breathing in the scent of early summer magnolias. Other days when I was tired, we just sat on park benches, telling stories, about her college life, about when I first met George, about old friends who had passed. Those were simple mornings that I wanted to cherish forever. Learning of my determination to run a 5K, neighbors all around encouraged me. Some gave me small water bottles, others showed me apps to track my steps. Doris, my best friend since elementary school, said, "You're truly inspiring this old bunch. Maybe I should try running too, even with my creaky joints." I went back to see my doctor to tell her about my plan. Dr. Emily, nearly 40 years younger than me, looked at me with surprise then smiled. "I think you can do it. Just listen to your body, stick to your regimen, don't push too hard." I promised like an elementary school student, excited as if I were about to start my first physical education class. On rainy mornings, I just sat by the window watching raindrops fall on leaves. I remembered the days in the hospital, the moments of conquering each pain, each sleepless night. I told myself, if I could overcome that much pain, then this 5K race will be the most beautiful gift of my life. By July, Kelly and I could run continuously for nearly 2 miles. Each time we finished, we hugged, laughed loudly, breathed in the summer air fragrant with grass. I felt more flexible, stronger, and, most importantly, I felt alive again in those small moments. My 80th birthday was approaching. My family organized a small party in the backyard, with tiny colorful flags hanging on fence posts, fragrant apple pie that Kelly and I had made since early morning. George sat enjoying his coffee, looking at me pensively. He took my hand, the wrinkled hand that had accompanied him all these years, and whispered, "Eleanor, I'm so proud of you. You're about to do something wonderful for the whole family." Both sons and all the grandchildren were present. The youngest grandchild drew me a card with a picture of a white-haired grandmother running, below it the scribbled words, "You're my #1 athlete." I laughed with tears rolling down my cheeks. The party was simple but warm, everyone encouraging me, even neighbor Doris came over and slipped an embroidered handkerchief into my hand, "To wipe your sweat at the finish line, keep going." At that moment, I knew I wasn't alone in this race, but had my entire family, friends, and neighbors as sources of encouragement. That evening, I sat on the porch swing looking at the honey-colored sunset spreading across the lawn. The early autumn breeze was cool, I heard crickets chirping and smelled the damp earth. I thought about the years that had passed, the joys, the sorrows, the falls and recoveries. Suddenly I felt at peace, no longer afraid or doubtful. Whatever awaited ahead, I had lived fully every minute, every second of my 80th year. Finally, the day of the 5K race arrived. Early in the morning, Kelly woke me up, already having prepared my clothes and my beloved blue shoes. I looked at myself in the mirror, my neatly cut white hair, the crow's feet around my eyes, but my eyes bright with joy. George, our children, and the grandchildren were all there early, bringing colorful banners saying, "Go Grandma, go." Doris and a few old friends also stood at a distance waving. I hugged Kelly tightly, her small but strong hand had guided me throughout this journey. The atmosphere at the starting point was bustling, music, loudspeakers calling out age groups, younger runners warming up, smiling and encouraging me, "Ma'am, you can do this." I felt the empathy, the energy spreading from strangers, new friends on the upcoming path. Kelly gently touched my shoulder, "Do this for yourself, Grandma. I know you can." I took a deep breath, regaining my emotional balance. All the experiences, pain, hope, all seemed to blend into one. The whistle blew. The crowd moved. Kelly and I joined the flow, gradually pacing ourselves. At first, I walked slowly, finding my steady breathing rhythm. The sky was clear, gentle sunshine spreading gold on the road. I heard people's encouragement echoing from both sides, "You can do it, Eleanor, Grandma, you're amazing." With each running step, I recalled every day of struggling with illness, every morning training with Kelly in the cold rain, every moment I wanted to quit but pushed on instead. My legs trembled as I climbed a small hill, but Kelly quickly grabbed my hand, "It's okay to slow down. This is our own race." Halfway through, I was already tired. My chest ached, reminding me of my age, but I told myself, "Eleanor, didn't you promise Kelly you wouldn't give up?" I took a deep breath, looking ahead. My family's banners fluttered in the distance, their cheerful voices urging me forward. An elderly man walked by, white-haired, with a kind smile. "We're the tough old ones, aren't we?" I responded with a nod and a smile. Before the final stretch, I took Doris's embroidered handkerchief from my pocket, wiped my forehead, then tucked it back like a lucky charm. Kelly whispered, her eyes sparkling, "Grandma, I'll hold your hand at the finish line." Isn't that wonderful? When the finish line appeared, all my emotions welled up. The feeling of exhaustion gave way to excitement. I saw all my loved ones waving and cheering. George stood at the front of the crowd, his eyes glistening. The grandkids ran along the sidelines, shouting encouragement with the innocence only children can muster. I pushed harder, grabbing Kelly's hand. The two of us stretched our strides as far as we could. The crowd roared and applauded. When my feet crossed the finish line, I burst into tears, not from pain, not from exhaustion, but from the knowledge that I had broken through an old boundary, that I had accomplished something I had never dared to imagine. My children and grandchildren crowded around me in a group hug. Doris waved her embroidered handkerchief, cheering, "You're our idol now." The race organizers handed me a little medal hung on a bright red ribbon. I accepted it with a lump in my throat. It felt unfamiliar and yet so right, as if my youth had suddenly come back in that instant. A young reporter from the local newspaper came to interview me. All I could do was smile and say, "Everyone thinks 80 is too late, but I'm living the best days of my life right now." My family pulled out a picnic blanket and we sat on the grass to celebrate. Kelly gave me a cup of cold lemonade and pinned my medal to my shirt herself. "Grandma," she whispered, "today you're my hero." I looked up at the deep blue sky, breathing in the grassy warmth of a fall afternoon. So many thoughts rushed through me. I used to think happiness was only found in big, dazzling things, but it turned out to be this very moment, among family, friends, with a heart full of love and gratitude for life. In the weeks following the race, I became a cheerful topic in our neighborhood. Friends sent congratulatory cards, neighbors stopped by with bouquets of wildflowers. Some of the younger folks from the running club visited and asked me for training tips. Other days, Doris took me to the coffee shop just to regale the whole place with stories about the most energetic old lady in town. I started writing down my feelings and memories from the journey. Kelly helped me set up a social media account, where we posted pictures from our training days, the finish line moment, and the caption, "Never too late." Every time someone commented or shared the story, I felt like I was planting little seeds of hope everywhere. Dr. Emily, my oncologist, visited me at home. She said, "You've inspired so many other cancer patients. You give them hope for renewal." I smiled, thinking that if my story could give someone else strength, every moment of hardship was worth it. Every morning, I keep up my walking routine, though I no longer run as far as I did while training. I take my time listening to the leaves fall, feeling the sunlight through the trees, my breath softer but my heart steadier than ever. I know not everyone can run a 5K at 80, but anyone can choose to step out of their comfort zone, to start something new. I treat myself to slow weekends gardening, reading, teaching my grandkids to knit, cooking cozy dinners. Kelly has learned to slow down and treasure every minute with her grandma. My sons call more often, telling me their plans and adventures, wanting to share their youth with me once again. Sometimes I sit at the window and remember the dark days, the despair, the nights I thought it was all over. But life can always begin again from any point. I've learned that you're never too old to dream, to take a leap, to live every meaningful moment. If you ask me, what is most important after everything? I'd say, it's faith, in yourself, in the love of family, in everyday things like autumn sunlight, the smell of apple pie, and unfinished dreams. Maybe I'll never run a 5K as fast as some younger people, but I've crossed the finish line on my own terms, with my family, my friends, and an undefeated heart. I tell this story to anyone who feels discouraged by age or illness. Please remember, it's never too late to start. Every day, we can choose a new dawn. Though our bodies age, the desire to live with health, joy, and meaning never grows old. If I, an 80-year-old grandma who survived cancer, can complete a 5K race, then I believe anyone can surpass themselves, at any stage in life. After my story appeared in the local newspaper, then spread through social media thanks to the account Kelly helped set up, I was surprised to receive dozens of letters from all over. Initially, just a few came from people around Massachusetts, but gradually, letters arrived from Florida, California, even as far as Alaska. Handwritten notes, greeting cards with congratulations, and even personal stories shared with me. One letter came from a 65-year-old woman in Arkansas who wrote that she had been living in depression after her husband passed away, but after reading my story, she had started joining a walking club for seniors. "I thank you, Eleanor," she wrote. "You reminded me that happiness is still there, even when you think you've lost everything." One Tuesday morning, while organizing these letters in a beautiful box George had made for me, I found a letter from a 12-year-old boy from Oregon. He wrote that he had read my story during his English class and was trying to persuade his grandmother, who had recently undergone knee surgery, to go outside more. Attached was a rough drawing, an elderly white-haired woman wearing a gold medal, with a beaming smile. I couldn't hold back my tears. Those letters, piled in that wooden box, became my treasure. Whenever I felt tired or discouraged, I would take them out to read, reminding myself that my story had changed and was still changing others' lives, something I had never imagined before. One day, Doris and a few old friends came to my house for tea, discussing the idea of starting a small club for seniors in our area. "You'll be the main inspiration," Doris said, "and we can meet weekly, exercise, share experiences on overcoming difficulties." That idea sparked and grew, and after 2 months, the Never Too Late Club was officially born. Initially with just 5 members, we met in my backyard every Wednesday morning. I taught light exercises I had learned during my training days with Kelly. Doris brought homemade oatmeal cookies. Margaret, a retired yoga teacher, taught us simple breathing and meditation exercises. Gradually, the club gained more members, mainly seniors from 60 to 85, but also younger people who came to participate and learn from us. Each meeting wasn't just physical training, but an opportunity to share life stories, lessons learned, and even our fears about death and illness. Getting old doesn't mean giving up, I often told new members. It just means we need to live more wisely, cherish each moment more, and sometimes, the limitations of age force us to be creative and find new ways of living. At one meeting, Charlie, a 78-year-old former teacher who had recently undergone heart surgery, shared that he had been afraid to leave his house after the operation. "But then I heard about Eleanor," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "And I told myself, if an 80-year-old woman can run a 5K after battling cancer, what excuse do I have not to try?" After 6 months, our club had more than 30 official members. We moved our meetings to the local community center during winter, which offered more space. Each week, we not only exercised but also organized talks about nutrition for seniors, stress management, and sharing new hobbies, from gardening to painting to memoir writing. "Old age is not the end," I said during our 6-month anniversary celebration. "It's just a new chapter, with pages we have the privilege to write in our own way." Kelly, My beloved granddaughter, who had accompanied me through every challenge, was now in her final year of college, majoring in psychology. One evening, she called me, her voice excited. "Grandma, I have good news. My essay about you was selected for publication in the university's psychology journal." I was surprised and moved. "You wrote about me?" "Yes," Kelly replied. The topic was resilience in older adults. "I wrote about your journey, from cancer diagnosis to the 5K race, and the club you now run. My professor said it was an excellent case study in resilience." 2 weeks later, Kelly brought me a copy of the journal, where my story was retold through an academic but emotional lens. I read every line, amazed to see myself become a source of inspiration for studies in positive psychology and successful aging. "You know what," Kelly said, sitting next to me in the armchair, "I've decided my postgraduate research will be in geriatric psychology, helping older people live happier, healthier lives. All because of you." I hugged my granddaughter tightly, tears streaming down my face. It was one of the most meaningful gifts in my life, knowing that my journey had not only changed me but was shaping the future of the next generation. That winter came early and was harsher than usual. Snow blanketed Massachusetts, and temperatures dropped to record lows. For seniors like us, this was a difficult time. When joints ached more, venturing outside became dangerous due to ice, and the cold was biting. But the members of the Never Too Late Club didn't back down. Instead of meeting in my garden as usual, we moved our activities to the small hall of a nearby church, which always opened its doors to the community during winter. Doris brought domino sets, Charlie brought his old radio to play classic jazz, Margaret taught us gentle yoga moves suitable for older people. I found indoor exercises online, printed them out, and distributed them to everyone. Sometimes, we just sat telling old stories, baking cookies, and sipping hot coffee in a room filled with hearty laughter. I couldn't deny that my body had weakened since the summer. Sometimes, I woke up with aching legs, trembling hands, and some days I didn't have the strength to climb the stairs in one go. But instead of hiding these concerns, I chose to share them with friends in the club. We often encouraged each other, "As long as today is a little better than yesterday, that's enough." One day in early February, Massachusetts was buried in a major snowstorm. Thick snow clung to the windows, and everyone in the club called me, not to ask about my health, but to tell me what they had been doing at home. Charlie practicing deep breathing exercises, Margaret meditating by the window, Doris starting to learn watercolor painting. That's when I realized, we weren't just training physically, but learning to enrich our spiritual lives every day, no matter how harsh the outside conditions. That I spent more time writing. On days when snow fell heavily, I sat by the window, journaling about aging and the journey I'd been through. Sometimes Kelly would FaceTime from school, telling me about her classes and research plans. She always reminded me, "Stay healthy, stay positive, Grandma. Spring will come, and we'll run together again." That sound, that anticipation became my motivation to continue each day. Spring finally returned, ice melted, and the first new shoots emerged from the lawn in front of my house. Kelly and I went to the park, breathing in the fresh air, moving our limbs slowly but with determination. Though I no longer trained with the same intensity as before, I still tried to walk every morning, reminding myself that the body may age, but the spirit must not be allowed to slumber. It was then that I received a special letter from the organizers of last year's 5K race. They invited me as an honorary guest to inspire new participants. This time, I didn't set a goal to finish the race, but just wanted to be present, to share a few words with everyone about my journey. I wrote a short speech emphasizing, we cannot become young again, but we can be young at heart, in every choice we make, every day. On race day, I stood on a small stage, looking down at faces, both young and old, all eager, sparkling with hope. I told them about my fear when I received the cancer diagnosis, about the difficult steps, the cold winter days, and the warmth of friendship, family, and community around me. I concluded with my familiar phrase, "It's never too late to start, or to shine." Kelly stood below, eyes moist, waving to me like the first time. After the ceremony, many people came to chat, thanking me for sharing. A young woman who had suffered a sports injury confided that after hearing my story, she felt confident returning to racing. A 75-year-old man asked for my secret to maintaining a cheerful spirit. They helped me understand more deeply, each person's effort, however small, can spread and become a miracle for someone in their darkest hour. Once, sitting by the window watching the pale afternoon sun shine on rooftops, I suddenly thought, perhaps life is like a long marathon. Sometimes we pause, sometimes we tire, but as long as we don't completely stop, don't cease to hope, every step has meaning. I had been through days that people typically consider too late for any new beginning. But it was those very years that taught me the true value of life, love, companionship, sharing, and never ceasing to rise, even in the smallest steps. Now, every morning I still tend my garden, savoring peace in every breath. Each week I meet my old friends, train with the club, tell life stories, encourage each other to dare to live, dare to try, dare to dream. And I know, whether 80 or 90, my heart remains young. Because it's never too late to start again, to love more, to surprise yourself, and to become an inspiration for someone else, even if just once in a lifetime. I am Eleanor, 80 springs of life, and I continue my race, every day, with a heart that refuses to grow old. And I believe that my story isn't just about a 5K race or defeating illness, but about the endless possibilities humans have at any age, about the unexpected strength we can find when facing adversity. George often jokes that I'm like a fine wine, more sophisticated and flavorful with age. I laugh, but I'm grateful that at this age, someone still finds me precious. Sometimes, I remember who I used to be, a woman always afraid of aging, of disease, of being left behind. Now, I understand that age is just a number, and spirit determines how we live. A year has passed since the first race, and many things have changed. The Never Too Late Club now has more than 50 official members, with small branches in neighboring towns. We don't just exercise but organize book readings, share life skills, and even have basic technology classes for seniors taught by young volunteers. Kelly graduated college with a thesis on resilience in older adults, with me as the primary research subject. She was accepted into a prestigious graduate program and often jokes, "Grandma, you helped me find my lifelong passion." This April, I learned that my story would be included in a book about inspirational people across America. The author, a veteran journalist from New York, came to interview me for 3 days. She wanted to know every detail, from my first emotions upon receiving the diagnosis, to the feeling of crossing the finish line, and the changes in my soul after all those experiences. "Mrs. Eleanor," she said, "your story is living proof that old age isn't a barrier, but an opportunity to view life through a different lens, deeper and more complete." I became somewhat famous in a limited way, but that didn't change my daily life. I still walk every morning, still cook familiar dishes for George, still sit by the window reading on rainy afternoons. Only now, I understand that each simple action contains great value, the privilege of living, feeling, loving. Occasionally, I still go to the backyard and try a few short runs. My legs aren't as nimble as before, but my heart still races with excitement. Sometimes I wonder if I could participate in another race, even just a short distance. But then I realize, what matters isn't whether I can run again, but that the spirit of challenging myself never fades. An idea formed in my mind one spring morning. I wanted to do something for cancer patients being treated at the hospital, where I had once lain during my darkest days. My club members and I decided to donate books, knit warm hats for chemotherapy patients, and write small encouraging letters. In May, I returned to the hospital, not as a patient but as a bearer of hope. I clearly remember the feeling of walking into the familiar corridor, the smell of disinfectant, the echo of machinery, and the tired faces of patients waiting for their next treatment. It was here that I had once despaired, had thought about the end of my life. Dr. Emily, who had accompanied me throughout my treatment, hugged me tight when she saw me enter. "Eleanor. You look so well." She took me to meet patients, introducing me as an example of resilience. I sat down beside a woman in her 60s, her eyes weary from chemotherapy. "I'm Eleanor," I said softly. "I once sat in a bed just like this, 3 years ago." She looked at me, her eyes suddenly brightening. "Really? And now you're healthy and happy," I finished for her. "Healthy enough to run a 5K at 80, and happy enough to know that every day is a miracle." I shared my journey with her, my fears, the determination to push through, and the joy of discovering new abilities within myself. I gave her a light blue knit hat I'd made and a small note that read, "No matter how dark the night, the dawn always comes. Hold on to hope." All day, I moved from room to room, listening, sharing, and sometimes simply holding the hands of those fighting illness. Some cried, some smiled, some held me as if I was bringing them something priceless, the belief that they could get through this, too. When I left the hospital, I felt a profound joy, distinct from the happiness of finishing a race. This was the joy of sharing, of being part of someone else's healing journey. Sometimes, on peaceful mornings, I sit on my porch swing, sipping hot tea and reflecting on all I have experienced. I remember the pain of radiation therapy, the fear when treatment seemed endless, and the sleepless nights spent worrying about tomorrow. But I also remember beautiful moments, the loving look in George's eyes as he watched me push through my training, Kelly's excitement planning our runs, the precious friendship with Doris and the club, and the grateful looks of the patients I met at the hospital. All these moments taught me the deepest lesson, to live in gratitude. Grateful for each day I wake up breathing, grateful for feeling the cool breeze, hearing birdsong, or just watching the sky change with the seasons. I'm grateful I can still hug George at night, for long phone calls with Kelly, for the laughter of my grandchildren in the kitchen, and for the simple mornings walking with my friends. I learned to be grateful even for challenges, like cancer, which once felt like a heavy shadow, but also made me stronger and helped me discover myself more than ever. Without those dark times, I might never have dared take part in a 5K, never thought I could inspire others, or help create a close-knit community like the Never Too Late Club. Gratitude also means seeing every precious moment of old age as a gift that doesn't last forever, but one made more profound and rich by every feeling. My friends, now all in their 70s and 80s, sometimes joke, there's not much time left, so why be afraid? And so we live each day fully, no regrets, no waste, sharing laughter, stories, tears, and the quiet secrets of growing old. Now, having lived through more than 80 springs, I no longer look at my life with the hesitance of someone who once thought everything is too late. On the contrary, I see these years as the most radiant part, because I dared to break my limits, to dream, to run, and to triumph over myself. I write these lines for anyone who fears aging, illness, or feels the door of opportunity has closed. Please believe, it is never too late. It's never too late to write a new chapter, attempt something untried, forgive, love, inspire, or live each last heartbeat to the fullest. If I, Eleanor, an 80-year-old woman who battled cancer, can finish a 5K, you can do your own extraordinary thing too. Maybe it's a trip, a new class, a painting, a song, or simply daring to step outside, to connect with life and those around you. I hope that when I am truly old, this story will live on, within Kelly, my grandchildren, dear friends, and readers far and wide. Live fully, bravely, and with deep gratitude, dear friend. Epilogue. On the little table on my porch, that red medal still lies shining in the afternoon sun. George puts his hand on my shoulder, his gaze loving. Children's laughter echoes in the distance. I understand that happiness isn't anything grand, it's continuing to run each day, in my own way, always learning, always sharing love, and always believing, it's never too late to begin again. I am Eleanor, 80 years old, and every day, I'm still finishing my own life's race.